go ahead and give this tale a thumbs up. Helps keep the story spirits riding high through the algorithm plains. And if you ain't already, hit that subscribe button. So next time we saddle up for another twisted history, you'll be right there in the saddle beside us. Out on the high plains of the Texas Panhandle, where the land stretches wide and flat enough to make a man feel small against eternity, there stood a lonely outpost of mud and dreams. They called it Adobe Walls, a simple trading post built by buffalo hunters and traders, a place meant for peace, but destined for blood. Back in 1864, the West was still wild, too wild for even the cavalry to tame. The Civil War raged far to the east, but out here, the battles were older, bloodier, personal. The Comanche and Kiowa ruled this sea of grass and wind, their horses slicing across the plains like ghosts. To them, this land wasn't empty. It was sacred, and every new fort, trail, or trader meant another wound carved into the heart of their world. Enter Colonel Kit Carson, frontier legend, trapper, scout, soldier, and a man who had seen more dust, death, and destiny than most men could dream. In late 1864, orders came down, push east from Fort Bascom, New Mexico, with 400 men, including Pueblo Scouts and 1st Cavalry volunteers, and hunt down the Comanche and Kiowa raiders who'd been striking wagon trains and settlements across the frontier. Carson didn't much care for glory. He cared about getting things done. And this mission? It was supposed to be a quick strike. But history, as we know in twisted history, never plays straight. They rode out across the Canadian River, the men weary, the land dry and cold. For days, they found nothing but wind and buffalo bones. Then, on November 25th, scouts spotted smoke curling up from a cluster of lodges in the distance, an encampment so large it looked like a small city of skin and canvas. That wasn't just one band of warriors. It was over 1,000 Comanche and Kiowa, perhaps 3,000 depending on who you believe. The sheer size was staggering. Carson had ridden into a storm he didn't yet understand. He ordered his artillery up, 2 mountain howitzers, dragged across the plains by mules. When they opened fire, the shells thundered through the valley like the wrath of heaven. The first explosion sent panic through the camp. Women and children scattering, warriors rallying, horses screaming. But when the smoke cleared, the tide began to turn. The Comanche regrouped, their riders fanned out in wide, sweeping arcs, hundreds of them, painted and screaming, their war cries rising over the wind. They circled the soldiers, cutting off escape, raining arrows down from the ridges. Carson's men fought from a small ridge near the ruins of an old trading post, the Adobe Walls. Made of thick clay and earth, it offered a fragile kind of cover against an overwhelming enemy. For hours, the battle roared. Cannon smoke mixed with dust. The cries of men and horses filled the air, and every time the cavalry thought they'd broken through, another wave of warriors came thundering down the slopes. By afternoon, Carson realized he was outnumbered 10-1. His ammunition ran low. He ordered his men to burn the Kiowa village they'd captured earlier, a fiery signal that blazed across the plains. But it also drew every surviving warrior down upon them like hornets on honey. The only thing that saved them was the howitzers. Each blast tore through the charging lines, scattering warriors and horses. By nightfall, Carson's line was nearly broken. He gave the order to retreat, slow and careful, wagon by wagon, under constant fire. They left behind smoldering lodges, fallen men, and the haunting echoes of a battle neither side could truly call victory. When Carson and his men finally limped back to New Mexico, they'd lost about 25 men. The tribes lost hundreds, maybe, no one knows for sure. But in the memory of the Plains tribes, that day became legend. The day the Bluecoats came and then ran. And to the soldiers it was proof that no army could truly tame the Great Plains. Yet Adobe Walls wasn't finished. Its story would rise again. 10 years later, in 1874, buffalo hunters would rebuild the post, and a young hunter named Billy Dixon would make history with a rifle shot so long it still echoes through time. But that's another twisted trail for another night. You see, Adobe Walls wasn't just a place, it was a symbol of everything the West was. Wild, cruel, beautiful, and tragic. A place where cultures collided, where courage met chaos, and where the ghosts of both sides still ride the wind. And when the moon rises over those empty ruins today, some swear they still hear the thunder of hooves, the distant echo of cannon fire, and Kit Carson's gravel voice calling his men to stand their ground. One last time. The Second Battle of Adobe Walls marked the beginning of the end for the Plains tribes. In the months that followed, the U.S. Army launched the Red River War, driving the remaining Comanche, Kiowa, and Southern Cheyenne onto reservations. The buffalo were wiped out, the hunters moved on, and the land, once alive with hooves and thunder, fell silent. For the hunters, Adobe Walls became legend. Billy Dixon received the Medal of Honor later that year for heroism at another battle, though he always claimed that Miracle Shot was pure chance. Pat Masterson went on to fame as a lawman and gambler, roaming from Dodge City to Denver. Jim Hanrahan opened a saloon and kept the story alive around smoky tables and whiskey glasses until the day he died. And the site itself, that lonely patch of prairie, faded into memory again. But like all twisted corners of history, Adobe Walls refused to stay buried. In the early 1900s, ranchers rediscovered the site. Old bullets, cartridge shells, arrowheads, and broken glass still littered the ground. In 1924, the Panhandle Plains Historical Society raised a stone monument on the spot. It stands there today, a tall, solemn marker surrounded by endless grass and sky. Each year, visitors still drive out from Borger or Amarillo, following dirt roads until they reach that open plain. There's no town, no park, no ticket booth, just wind, grass, and ghosts. Some say the land still feels charged, heavy with memory. Hunters and hikers swear they've seen faint riders in the dusk, galloping silently across the ridge where Dixon made his shot. Others say they hear whispers, the clash of battle carried in the wind. It's as if the past refuses to rest, replaying its tragedy under an endless Texas sky. Thanks for riding with me through this dusty corner of time. If you enjoyed the story, give that video a thumbs up and subscribe for more twisted history. And remember, the past don't stay buried, not out here on the frontier.